welcome back to another week of Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line with the movers and shakers, those film and TV and streaming makers, the producers, directors, writers, actors, cinematographers, production designers, costume designers, film editors, sound editors, mixers and designers, VFX gurus, composers, stuntmen and women, and so many more. And you all know how much I love film and how much I like to talk. So it is an absolute joy to give you a front row seat to the who, what, where, when, why, and how of movie making with these interviews and film chats. Well, as you may know, it's post-Oscar Monday, and most of Hollywood is probably still recuperating from a night of celebration. Some big winners at the Oscars last night, and no real surprises. Top acting awards went to Michael B. Jordan for Best Actor for his dual character portrayals in Sinners. Jessie Buckley nabbed Best Actress for Hamnet. No-show Sean Penn, which picked up Best Supporting Actor for One Battle After Another. And for my money, that was a surprise. I personally was rooting for Jacob Elordi for Frankenstein or Delroy Lindo. So that was a disappointment for me. And no surprise here at all. 40 years after her first Oscar nomination, Amy Madigan won gold for her unforgettable turn as Aunt Gladys in Weapons. K-pop, a great first here. Korean filmmakers, South Korean filmmakers, won for K-pop Demon Hunters walked away as Best Animated Film. One Battle After Another won Best Picture, and Sentimental Value, the Stellan Skarsgård movie, won for Best International Film. Best Director went to Paul Thomas Anderson. I know the odds were pretty split. Would it go to Ryan Coogler? Would it go to Paul Thomas Anderson? Making history was Autumn Durald Arkapaw as the first female cinematographer to win Oscar Gold for her work on Sinners. Now, over the years, as many of my regular listeners and readers know, I have interviewed quite a few female cinematographers, one of them being the acclaimed Rachel Morrison. But nobody's ever made it to that stage and to grab that little golden boy. Autumn has done that. And personally, I'm thrilled by it because that award means a lot. An old friend of mine and one of my early mentors in filmmaking in this business, Brianne Murphy, was the first female cinematographer on a major studio and union film, which was Fatso. And she was the first female cinematographer inducted into the American Society of Cinematographers. Brianne passed away some years ago, but I'm sure she was looking down from on high and cheering Autumn's win. It's been a long time coming for a female cinematographer to be up on that stage, and hopefully we'll see more women being lauded in what many still think of as traditionally being a male position on a film crew. So I'm just tickled for Autumn. Now, another first this year was an Oscar for Best Casting, which went to One Battle After Another. Our next new category for an Oscar win, will be for the 100th anniversary in 2028, when an Academy Award will be given out for stunts. So I intend to hang in there until then. Then maybe hang everything up. I want to see my beloved stunt community get acknowledged by the Academy. So, got something to look forward to. Now, no surprise here. Frankenstein won gold for Best Costuming, Best Production Design, Best Hair and Makeup. And Guillermo del Toro, even though he was overlooked, didn't even get a nomination for Best Director. He was championing, really going to the mat for the artisans in these categories for costuming, for hair and makeup, and production design. Frankenstein would not have been what it is without those departments and their work. Of course, all of that started in Guillermo's very vivid mind. But I'm just very excited for that. And of course, more big applause for Joe Letteri and the team from Weta as they picked up another Oscar for visual effects for their work on Avatar: Fire and Ash. No surprise there. You know, sadly, Diane Warren did not win. 17 times a nominee and still no win for her in the Best Original Song category. But, no surprise, Golden, from the international sensation from K-pop Demon Hunters, took that prize for Best Original Song. And that's more than okay. Sinners won for Best Original Score. Ryan Coogler grabbed gold for Best Original Screenplay, while Paul Thomas Anderson won for Best Adapted Screenplay. The ceremony itself was pretty unremarkable. There were no catastrophes, no bitch slapping. There was some really bad technical glitches within the show itself with sound, lighting, mics, and some bad commercial cuts. Highlights for me personally included Bill and Lewis Pullman presenting the award for Best Editing to One Battle After Another. Not for the award itself, but because it was Bill and Lewis together presenting. Finally, there was an in memoriam that was done with grace and was beautifully executed, albeit missing countless individuals from being honored, many of whom are still not included on the Academy website listing either, which the chyron on the screen immediately after the in memoriam ended said, you know, go to the website, and the Oscar website, and oh, more are there. Well, there's still a lot that aren't there. So that's disappointing. Now, Billy Crystal's tribute to Rob Reiner was beyond moving, especially when about 20 plus cast members from Reiner's films all took to the stage in silence to honor him. And Barbra Streisand honored Robert Redford, even singing a few bars of The Way We Were, which brought everyone to their feet, many with tears in their eyes. And from what I was seeing on social media, I think most people even watching were very teary when Barbra sang. And we also all know that she typically doesn't just burst into song. She likes to be well rehearsed and have it musically and acoustically perfect. So it was a real treat for her to talk about Bob and then give us a few bars to remember him by. And I cannot overlook a scene-stealing appearance by Baby Yoda, aka Grogu, which was absolutely adorable, with Sigourney Weaver going into protective mother mode because Kate Hudson was showering him with a little too much attention down in the seating. And thrilled me to no end. A great way to cap off the night, a musical reunion of Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman for the 25th anniversary of Moulin Rouge. And they then presented the Academy Award for Best Picture. But now we look ahead to the 99th Academy Awards, which are going to be held next year on March 28th, 2027, before that all-important 100. And 100, the 100th in 2028, will be the last year that the Oscars will be on broadcast television. They will then be streaming on YouTube. And one of Conan O'Brien's comedic bits during the show really poked fun at people watching things on their phones on YouTube. Very funny, but also very true about skewed aspect ratios, screen shrunk. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out by the time we get to 101st Academy Awards. But right now, it's time for us to look at films and and hear from some filmmakers in the running for the 99th Academy Awards. Namely, director MARC KLASFELD and his new film, Do Not Enter, and screenwriter DAVID KOEPP and his latest, Cold Storage. First up, screenwriter and now author, DAVID KOEPP, talking about his sci-fi thriller, Cold Storage. Now, you all know who David is. He's the screenwriter behind Jurassic Park, Stir of Echoes, The Mummy, several Indiana Jones movies, Zathura, Death Becomes Her, Carlito's Way, and so many more. Some are original scripts. Many are adaptations of books or novellas from authors like Michael Crichton, the Jurassic Park series, and Stephen King. But now with Cold Storage, David is adapting his own book. Yes, Cold Storage was David's first book that just came out, I think, in 2019. The book's great, so I encourage you, if you like sci-fi, get the book. And read it. You'll totally enjoy it, and then watch the movie, or watch the movie and then get the book. Either way, I think you're going to love both. But as for the movie, I love Cold Storage and every deliriously pulpy, smartly crafted minute of it. This is the kind of sci-fi thriller that knows exactly what it is. It leans into its genre DNA with confidence, and still takes the time to honor craft, character, and clarity. It's funny, it's tense, it's occasionally campy in the best way, and relentlessly entertaining. Cold Storage is directed by Johnny Campbell and adapted by David from his own novel, and the film drops us into a self-storage facility that's built atop an old U.S. military base. Always a good idea, don't you know? Where a parasitic fungus has been sealed away decades earlier, and it finally decides it's time to stretch its spores. What follows is a breathless, darkly humorous ride that balances body-bursting horror, clean science exposition, and character-forward storytelling without ever losing momentum. And the clean science exposition is so important because the book is very science-heavy. That translates between David and Johnny's direction. That translates so well visually and in abbreviated dialogue from the book. So we understand the science that's happening. And it is aided by the visuals. Now, in my exclusive interview with David, I just got to speak with him the other day, as a matter of fact. I think it was on Thursday I talked with him. And he discusses adapting his own novel into a film. And one of the highlights that we talk about are the challenges of preserving the book's humor and snark while simplifying the complex scientific concepts. He also emphasizes the importance of character-driven storytelling, noting the difficulty of cutting favorite parts from his own work. Yes, David had to kill some of his own darlings in the adaptation. And what's interesting is, because we also talked about the book concurrently with the film in several instances, science being one of those areas. And being so science heavy, he detailed his research process, which involved collecting relevant articles and consulting a microbiologist to make sure he got the science right in the book, so then it was right when he did the adaptation for the film. And he also touched on the balance between visual explicitness in screenwriting and maintaining reader engagement. He's got some really interesting thoughts on that. It's a fun, energetic interview about a fun, energetic film. So take a listen as David KOEPP talks Cold Storage. Hi, David.
Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I am so excited to be speaking with you, David. I am such an admirer of your work over these decades, shall we say.
Well, thank you. I feel like this interview is off to a great start.
But the most beautiful thing about Cold Storage is, number one, it was your first novel. I bought it as soon as it came out. I love the book.
Oh, great.
Now, to see you adapt your own material instead of someone else's into what this film, I am beyond thrilled. Beyond thrilled. I loved every single minute of this film. You have done the adaptation beautifully. The sci-fi, the thriller aspect. You've got the humor in there, the snark that's on the printed page, and you bring the science. You adapted the science from the page, which is always hard. I don't know how you pulled it off, but you did, and I am thrilled.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, adapting the science has to be the hardest part. It's, you know, I'd adapted Michael Crichton a few times.
Yeah.
And he's, you know, obviously densely researched, deeply knowledgeable. How on earth are you going to get this on screen? You know, the only way is in the mouths of characters. Or in Jurassic Park, you know, when we came up with Mr. DNA, you know, to basically a film strip to explain the science. And it's very tricky. One of the biggest things I struggled with from book to screenplay was in cold storage was the authorial voice, which was kind of funny and snarky and explained a lot of the science. That could not be present in the film. Like, you can't, you know, and it took several drafts to get that voice into the tone of the movie without, you know, like voiceover or stuff written on screen or dumb stuff like that. So that was tricky, but I feel like I'm glad it worked for you in the end.
Was it a lot more difficult adapting yourself than adapting someone else?
It was a little sadder because yes, very sad, because when you're adapting someone else, you're absolutely ruthless and you just don't care. You don't care if you're dropping the thing that was the author's favorite bit in the entire book. And you're able to make those decisions in a very clear-eyed, cold-blooded way. Only what works for the movie gets to come and nothing else can go. Or everything else must go. When you're adapting your own work, you are cutting your favorite stuff in some cases, and stuff that you worked very hard on, and it can be a little heartbreaking, but it takes, again, that also takes a few drafts to say you make a few valiant efforts at preserving something just because you personally like it and remember it well from the book, and then you say, yeah, but it doesn't work for the movie, so goodbye. That
is heartbreaking. Talk about killing your darlings, David.
Well, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Oh, my God. Now, because the book is so science-heavy, and the film retains so much of that science, how much research did you do? Because so much of this boils down to biology and microbiology.
I did quite a bit. You know, you start with collecting string. You have an idea. Anything you read, suddenly the whole world starts to look like that idea. So you're hyper attuned to things that might tie in with that idea. And I just start saving articles. I see things online, I save them, everything goes into a file, and then the story hopefully starts to take shape in your head. And then I would research things further that interested me or that I needed, but I didn't research it to death. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like I was always clear to myself that the number one value here is it needs to be entertaining. It's not a documentary. It should be fun and informative, but mostly entertaining. So I wrote with that in mind, and I researched things that were interesting or things that I needed, but I didn't let them drive the story. Then when I had a draft and I felt like the characters were behaving the way I wanted them to and the story worked mostly the way I wanted it to, then I went out and found a microbiologist and said, here, will you please read this? You'll probably find it ludicrous. That's okay. But, you know, if you're interested, would you come on as a consultant and help me figure out how to make it less ludicrous? It'll never be perfect, but I bet we can move it a lot closer to reality without hurting the story. And I was really thrilled because he read it and he called and he said, well, it's not terrible. And I thought that was great news because I'd gotten sort of close. with a first draft, researching it myself.
But I love it. It's not terrible, but you're waiting for that but.
Oh, there were plenty of those.
Now,
he said, but if you ever confuse a fungus and a benzene again, I quit. So
now,
I did not.
And now, in adapting for the screenplay, did you have to do any additional research because of how quickly science changes in this day and age?
Yes. I don't know that it's because science changes quickly, because it didn't change that fast. And we're really dealing with ancient organisms.
Right.
Our understanding of them changes and deepens. But in the few years between when I wrote the book and when I wrote the screenplay, I can't say that our understanding of fungi changed all that profoundly. You're doing more research because you're now going from, words on a page to a visual medium. So we have to actually see these things that are happening. So understanding how they might work or changing them to work slightly differently is very important. And so you are doing quite a bit of additional research because of the change in medium, not necessarily because of changes in science.
How visually explicit is your screenplay for something like this? Because the visuals are truly spectacular in here. Johnny has done an amazing job along with his DP and production designers. But I'm curious how visually explicit, because, some screenwriters write out every single little thing. He's wearing a hat. It's a fedora, but it has a red band on it. And it's very dense and dearth. So I'm curious how explicit you are in your writing as to the visuals.
Well, if the screenwriter is telling you what kind of hat it is, it better have something to do with the story. Otherwise, they're out of line. You have to keep... The job of a screenwriter is to simulate the movie experience in the reader's head, right? And to keep the pages turning at roughly the pace at which they want the movie to play. And if you're stopping for dense paragraphs of description, I got a note, which is don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to lose your writers. People are going to skip it. Half the readers only, skim the dialogue anyway.
Right.
So you have to pull out every trick to make things concise, to have good, terse visual descriptions, and not let them get bogged down in that. Having said that, you also have a responsibility to create a sequence. So if you are writing a primarily visual sequence, you have to describe it, but you're describing in brief, as few words as possible, what something looks like. Then you're moving to what is happening, and are things that are continually happening, what we cut to, when we come back to this. You're creating a whole sequence,
mm-hmm.
but you can't do so with dense blocks of description because you'll just lose your readers.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you know who was going to be cast in this before you got to the final version of your script? And does knowing who the actors are, does that impact any changes you might make within the characters and the dialogue?
Well, in the early stages of writing, I don't think about actors. I try really hard to keep them out of my head because you want the characters to be characters, and you don't want to. When an actor comes in, you will naturally start writing things that are tailored to them anyway. You can't help it. So that really is a sort of precious period before they're there, where you want the characters to just be who they are, and not planning your campaigns within the limitations of the actor or suiting their strengths. Then the actors come in, and it's kind of marvelous because the good actors act a lot like their character's lawyer, and they're always saying, well, my client wouldn't do that, or my client wonders about this, or my client would have left. And that's great, and you got to listen to it and defend all those choices or change them. And on this, Joe and Georgina, I remember in a rehearsal, they had such a nice chemistry that I said, well, why don't we write another scene here where they talk about blah, blah, blah. So I wrote a 3 or 4 page scene that I knew wouldn't be in the finished film. A few lines of it are, because it was too long and it didn't belong there. But it was important because they got to rehearse it, play it, shoot it, and it led to just a greater understanding of the characters and a better rapport. And I think those two have just a great chemistry on scene because of stuff like that.
Oh, they are fantastic together on screen. Absolutely fantastic. Any chance you're going to make a sequel to this?
I don't think so. I think it's a very good standalone movie. But one never knows.
I personally would love to see a sequel and take your younger characters and push them in a deeper direction. But I just think it's fantastic. What made you, instead of writing this originally as a film, as a screenplay, what made you decide to make this your first novel?
I don't know. I think I did picture it as a movie first, and I just started writing some prose about, as I often do, I just start writing about the character to try to get to know them a little bit. And after 2 or 3 pages, I was like, hey, I like writing this character, and his background's coming out nicely. I'll keep going. And so I kept going, and then it got to be 10 pages, 20, 50, and I think at some point around there I said, I think it's probably a book. So it just sort of evolved naturally, which was a great way to write it. And also, what was really nice about it is nobody knew about it or cared. So no one was waiting for me. No one had given me any money. There was no pressure at all. It was just the fun of playing with it.
Are you going to write another novel now?
Yeah, I wrote a second one called Aurora. Came out a few years ago. And I have a third one in mind, but the process of getting it out of my head and onto paper is another matter.
Okay, well now I have to go by Aurora because I still have not read that one. Trust me, David. I will definitely be spending money and buying that book to read that because I just fell in love with Cold Storage when that first came out. And this is such a strong adaptation, and I'm really hard on adaptations because a lot of filmmakers, they can't capture the emotion and the imagination of the printed page and bring it to life on screen. That's always a problem in so many cases.
Sympathy for them. It's very hard to do.
Yeah.
Books, you have direct access to a character's thoughts and feelings, and you just don't in a movie. You got to come up with other tools. It's not easy.
But you adapted Zathura, for goodness sakes.
Yes, with John Kemp.
For the record, I like that film. Just putting that out there. I like the film.
That's great. Thank you.
You've adapted Stephen King, Edwin Torres, obviously Michael Crichton numerous times. I got to ask you, what is the gift that you get in creating your own scripts, but also in adapting the works of other authors that makes you keep doing this?
I love telling stories, and I can't perfect it. I feel like every story I start at zero with something that might sound cool but doesn't work, and then I have to figure out how to make it work. And the challenge of storytelling is endless, and I think that's what keeps me going. There's a moment when you figure out, oh, wait a minute, instead of being unrelated to the the scene in court at the beginning, this scene should have to do with that. And maybe the guy from the thing is now here, and and then when those moments of breakthrough where you unite one thing with others that didn't appear to belong together, those are really satisfying. I think that's probably why I do it.
Well, David, you can keep writing as many scripts or as books as you want. And give you pleasure, because I am just such a huge admirer of your work. And Cold Storage, this wonderful sci-fi thriller filled with snark and humor, it's fantastic. And I will admit I've already watched it 3 times. So,
oh my God! Well, thank you so much. I'm really glad you liked it. That's great.
So,
and now you said I can go on as long as I want. So please report that to the authorities so that I'm allowed to do so.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Thank you.
David, I can't thank you enough. I know you got a really tight schedule today, and Emma found time to squeeze me in with you, and I so appreciate your time. And hopefully we're going to get to chat again in the future about another film.
I hope so. It was great talking to you.
Thanks so much, David. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
And that was screenwriter David Koepp discussing Cold Storage, which just happens to now be available on digital. So there's no excuse for not to not see it. Just sit at home. Turn it on. Pay $14 or whatever, or get it through one of your streaming services. Now, we go from a sci-fi thriller with snark and humor to a straight-up terror-filled tale from director MARC KLASFELD, Do Not Enter. And I'll tell you right now, if you're from Philly or Jersey and have fond memories of going down the shore, or all those stories and rumors about haunted places, horrid creatures like the Jersey Devil, or mobsters galore, then this is definitely the film for you. I was in little piggy heaven, because as you all know, I'm from Philly and spent my summers, vacations, my heart is at the Jersey Shore, where my grandparents built a house when I was born. So I would have a place to vacation. And it's still in the family. My brother has the house now. But I dearly love the shore. So when I see films that are set there or have wonderful Easter eggs for us that are undeniable down the shore, I'm going to love it, and so will you. Now, directed by Mark, with a script by Dakega Hadnot, Spender Mandel, and David Morrell, Do Not Enter is the story of the Creepers. Thrill-seeking urban explorers who love pushing things to the edge. And their latest stunt, live streaming from New Jersey's abandoned Paragon Hotel, is their biggest yet. With its mobster past, supposed ghost, and rumored stash of $300 million courtesy of Meyer Lansky, the Paragon is catnip to the creepers, a surefire way to increase their fan base online. You know, gotta go for that clickbait. But fear has other plans. Daring to enter the Paragon, not heeding the warnings, the creepers fend off deadly rivals while supernatural creatures stalk them from the shadows, testing their endurance, sanity, and willingness to pay fame's heavy price. Now, in this exclusive interview, Mark discusses the film's production, including the use of a massive abandoned building in Bulgaria, which is the Paragon, and collaborating with cinematographer Jan Thomas. Some of the things that we highlight, the importance of sound design, particularly in order to achieve the proper echo ambience in empty spaces, and the casting process, which involved extensive rehearsals. And how about shooting in Bulgaria as a stand-in for the Jersey Shore? He also goes into we also talk about some of the Easter eggs, including one, and because it's in the trailer, it's safe to give it to you. Y'all remember Hurricane Sandy and those startling images of the roller coaster at Seaside Heights as it collapsed into the ocean? Well, get ready, because that's incorporated in here. And that just stole my heart when I saw it, because that was actually the very first roller coaster I ever rode with my grandfather in Seaside Heights when I was a little girl. So lots of great touchstones here, and lots of striking imagery that tells you exactly where you are. And who would have thought Bulgaria could be a stand-in for the Jersey Shore? And Mark also gives us, a heads up on his next project, a hardcore horror movie. And he also reflects on the challenges and lessons learned from directing Do Not Enter. Now, what's interesting is this is Mark's only his second feature film after his narrative debut feature, directorial, back in 2005. Yes, 2005, 21 years ago. It was the flawlessly funny LA Riot Spectacular. God, that movie is it's satiric, it's biting. You can't stop laughing. It's the kind of film you have to watch a couple times because you're laughing so hard. And you'll miss some of the jokes. But the past 20 years, though, he hasn't been sitting idly by. He's been directing music videos, many famous music videos. And he does music videos really well. Now, Mark and I had spoken back in 2005 about LA Riot Spectacular. So it was wonderful to reconnect with him the other day and talk about Do Not Enter. So take a listen as Mark KLASFELD talks about Do Not Enter. Well, hello, the lovely Mark. We have met before.
Hello.
We have met before a long time ago.
Oh, wow. How are you?
I'm fine. LA Riot Spectacular 2005.
Wow. Well, thank you for having me.
I was so excited to see that you were directing another feature after decades of music videos.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I absolutely loved LA Riot Spectacular. It was flawlessly funny. We actually met and spoke the night of the premiere at the Sunset 5.
Wow.
In Hollywood, yeah. So
A blast from the past.
I'll tell you. And I have to say, you did not disappoint me with Do Not Enter.
Oh, you're so kind. Well, thank you so much.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. I mean, the first thing that struck me about this film was when I read the blast on it about South Jersey, the beach, and I'm from Philly and hung out for my entire life down the Jersey Shore. So
Okay.
I know that area well, and the whole idea of haunted everything's in that
Right.
area. And I still think Jimmy Hoffa is somewhere down there in the Pine Barrens in the soft sand. So,
I'm sure. I'm
so
sure he is.
the fact that I start watching this film and we're talking about Meyer Lansky, and I just started laughing, and it's like, okay, this is going to be cool. So
That's awesome. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of Jersey stuff, and a lot of that comes from the novel that it's sort of based on.
You capture the Jersey stuff beautifully from a visual standpoint. Right there, and we've got the opening titles, which are so cool, Mark. They have a music video feel to them, but they also have a vintage historical feel, but amped up. So I really love those opening titles.
Yeah, they put you in the mood of the movie, and there's little Easter eggs in there if you look very closely as well. So there's some storytelling that goes on in there as well.
Yes, there is. But where you really got me is when we actually are down the shore. We're outside the Paragon. You give us that great overhead VFX shot. And there, sitting in the ocean, is the roller coaster from Seaside Heights that collapsed into the ocean after Hurricane Sandy.
Well, I'm so glad you knew. You're picking up on all the little New Jersey, iconography through the movie. That's great. Yes.
That was the very first roller coaster I ever rode as a little girl with my grandfather. So when that roller coaster, dropped into the ocean during Hurricane Sandy, it broke my heart. And to see you bring that to the screen is it just moved me so much. And the authenticity factor was nailed. You nailed it in that one moment for me, Mark.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's awesome. Thank you.
So because this film is a very visual film, the story is character driven, but the film is very visual. How did you, when you got this script, how did you and your DP, Jan, how did the two of you go about designing your visual grammar? Because I have to tell you, the color wash that you have in play, the use of shadows, the expanse of space that you have, the lighting, because even though the lights aren't working, we have all these beautiful, beautiful modern chandelier things hanging that would have been the top of the line at the time the Paragon was built. So I'm curious how the two of you started developing your visual grammar, because you really make incredible use of your framing, of your masters, of your wide shots, and you save your ECUs. Talk to me about this wonderful collaboration, Mark.
Sure. Well, Jan Thomas is an amazing DP. He's he's DP'd dozens and dozens of music videos for me from my music videos. So we definitely have a shorthand. I think being cinematic comes very natural for me. If you can compare it to some of my music video work. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the things we did, we're inspired by a lot of horror adventure movies, and just we want. And when we found the location of the Paragon, we found this location in Bulgaria, because if you can imagine, it's very difficult to find an abandoned building of that size to shoot in that's safe.
Yeah.
There are abandoned buildings and such, but there's glass and all kinds of rebar and concrete and just things that aren't safe. So we found this one building in Bulgaria, of all places, which is why we ended up shooting there. And Jan and I just wanted to capture that space and do justice to it and do justice to the script. So, the film has certainly cinematic shots, but it even has, I love the VHS stuff in the movie. I'm a big fan of VHS art, and there's just the VHS aesthetic. So it has a little bit of everything, a little mixed media vibe to really give it a layered story.
Now I'm curious, once you found the building to be the Paragon, how much had to be built out with your production designer, with Nikolai Kirilov, and how much was actually there?
Well, I would say most of it was there. That's why we ended up shooting there. You cannot believe the size of this building. When Bulgaria was a communist country, I assume the government commissioned this to be built. God only knows for what function, but you can walk for miles in this space. Literally, wow. You can just keep walking and not get to the other end of it. That's how big it is. So there was so many. They had the big spaces. You mentioned the chandeliers, and so much of that there, and then some of the smaller spaces too. So it kind of had everything. It was just the perfect home for the script.
Wow. I'm looking at the imagery, and I'm like, this place, if it's real, it had to be just magnificent in its heyday.
Yeah, no, it is a magnificent space. I guess they have symphonies and things they do there now, but it's really a special space when you look at it.
So it's not decrepit and run down the way we see it in the film. It's actually a functioning, vital building today.
Yes, but it was when you turn off all the lights at night, and we shot at night. It's not new. It was built in the 70s, and there's definitely an eerie vibe to it. So there wasn't too much we really had to do. We definitely had to scatter some furniture and different things, but most of that just existed at night.
Wow. Boy, oh, you really lucked out finding this one, Mark.
Yeah, no, that's David Hillary. He's got a lot of experience shooting in Bulgaria, and he was the one who suggested it, and I couldn't believe it was real when I saw the photographs, but when we went over there, we saw it, and that's how we ended up there.
Now, I'm curious for you, as a director, and I know a lot of directors that have been filming in Bulgaria for a while now are really impressed with the film crews there. And I know quite a few people on your crew were locals from there. How was it working?
Well, unfortunately, in the United States, so much production has left and will continue to leave because of, a variety of financial factors, and places like Bulgaria popped up. And this all comes from Avi Lerner, who's a very big producer, and his son Yariv runs the studio there, and yeah, we weren't the only American production there. There were many, but really, I mean, more than the finances and stuff for us, we were actually really shooting there because of that space. Mm-hmm. But yes, they do all kinds of stuff there, and they're very adept at production, no question.
Were you shooting out of in conjunction with New Boyana?
Yes,
okay.
That's the name of that's it. New Boyana.
I know it quite well.
Yeah,
and guys that swear by it as one of the top studios in the world to work with.
Yeah, Yariv and the whole team there is they know how to make movies and TV. And sometimes I was watching I forgot what movie I was watching. I think it was Barbarian, mm-hmm. and and there's some really American looking scenes, and I just wouldn't have thought. And at the end of the movie, I saw that they shot there, and I was like, what? So they're good.
They've got everything there.
They do.
A great element here is because you really do build tension. And your editor, Patrick Smith, does this so well. And we get jump scares, we've got tension. Excellent editing when we get into the third act and our creepers and the scavengers, they're in different rooms and floors within the building. And we're cutting between that so we can see the splinter factions of where each person is. It's really tightly cut, and I like that. How challenging was the editing process, working with Patrick on this, but also bringing in the sound edit in conjunction with that, because you have some impeccable sound happening here.
Yeah, wow, that's such a great observation. Well, Patrick Smith is an up and coming editor. He's worked on some of the biggest movies made in the last 10, 15 years as an assistant editor. So he's experienced and seen all these big Tom Cruise movies and all this kind of stuff, and he's been right there, and he's seen and how those movies are edited. So he's not just your regular first time editor, I guess you might say. He really has experience and know-how, and I was just so happy to work with him. He brought a lot to it, and obviously you felt that.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, you've got James Parnell, who is your sound editor and re-recording mixer. You have some incredible sound elements here. What I really appreciate is we get the echo, the hollow sound that you're going to have in an empty space, like these ballrooms, like these rooms with no people, minimal furniture. How tricky was that sound?
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you noticed these things. Yeah, I mean, that was getting the sound of the space was equally as important as getting the visual right. It's just massive empty space and getting the echo. And I remember some scenes where it's just two characters talking, but it's echoing all throughout the giant cavernous space that it really helps you feel the space.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it absolutely does. And it really impressed me, because so often that's something that filmmakers are going to overlook and not take into account the ambient nature of the space that they're in.
Right.
But no, I mean, we've got the sonic differentials between crawling in the tunnels with thousands of rats, which is really, that just creeped me out, Mark. Creeped me out. But really, the production values here are so good, Mark. So well done. But then,
thank you.
I've got to ask you about casting this one. You've got 7 main principals. You have our creepers, plus our husband of the missing reporter, Frank. I love the character of Frank, by the way. He's fantastic. And then we get our scavengers, who, it's like, you hate JD from the very beginning of the film, when he is still part of the creepers. You question Diane because she keeps going off on her own and is not really part of the creeper group in many of the exploits that they're doing. Because she's just worried about clickbait and hits on social media. So how challenging was the casting? Because you've got to have people that are going to mesh, that will feel like an ensemble in each of the respective groups, the scavengers and the creepers.
Yeah, and then even within each of those groups,
yeah,
every character brings their own personality, their own skill set that helps the group. So we did spend a long time casting, and there's some great young actors, and I think we got some of the best of them. And then on top of that, we all famously sat together in a very small room in Bulgaria for weeks and just, rehearsed and ad-libbed and talked about the script. And we worked so hard, we all got COVID because we were all in such a little tiny room, and we had to delay production for like a week or two. So that was fun, but it did bring us all closer, and we did get some great performances from this cast.
And I do have to ask you about the creature. How did you come up with the look of the creature?
Well, I was thinking about, how to accomplish this, and I was Googling around, and I found this wonderful actor named Javier Botet. And when you see him, he's physically so unique. There are very few people that look like him, and I just couldn't believe that there was somebody who looked like this. And he was, a big inspiration for it. And then, he's just such a nice guy. He's such a sweet man. He's got such a good heart. And we talked about, the two sides to the character, because there's, without giving too much away, there's the human side to the character, and then there's the evil side, the creature, and he was great at bringing all that out. He's been, he's been in some very, very iconic roles in big films. So he's people probably don't know him by name, but they've seen him quite a bit.
Well, when I first saw him on the screen, I initially thought, oh my God, did Mark have a budget to hire Doug Jones?
Yeah, Doug Jones is another, yeah.
So I was surprised when I found out it was not Doug, and it was Javier Botet.
Yeah.
So you faked me out on that one, Mark. I got one last question for you. It's taken all these years for you to direct another feature. What did you learn about yourself in making Do Not Enter, in directing it, that you can take forward into future projects, be they music videos or more features? The latter, which I would love to see more of from you, because you do it well.
Oh, thank you. Well, I am doing another movie as we speak. And I wrote another movie. I wrote this. It was my idea, and I can't say too much about it. I guess I can say that it's a horror movie. It's a different sort of horror movie. It's a more hardcore, like hard R sort of horror movie. It's a concept horror movie. I guess I would say, since my budgets are still not, Tom Cruise level budgets, let's just say,
mm-hmm.
that I want to ensure, much like with Do Not Enter, that I can give an experience that the experience and the emotion matches what you might, get out of, spending a lot more money. So achieving that to me is very important with the script, and it's not falling short of that, and ensuring that we can accomplish what the script really needs to be and wants to be.
Well, I have to say, Mark, you have impressed me once again. You were flawlessly funny with LA Riot Spectacular. Here, totally different genre, and it is creepy, it is scary, it's a lot of fun, and you really bring this story to life, and you really capture South Jersey.
Great. Well, I'm so glad you brought all that up, and It's been so great to talk to you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Mark, and hopefully we're going to chat again after your next film.
Yeah, we are. We're definitely, let's book it.
You finish the film and we'll book it.
All right.
Thanks, Mark. And that was director Mark Klasfeld talking about Do Not Enter, which is in theaters, on digital, and on demand this Friday, March 20th. See it. You won't be disappointed. Well, that is all the time we have today. But join me again next week when I'll have more films to discuss and filmmakers to chat with. And in the meantime, make sure you go to the website, behindthelensonline.net, where I have plenty of new interviews and reviews already out for you. So until then, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.